This podcast contains adult themes and graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
A commercial-free version of this podcast is available on Patreon for $1 per month. Patreon.com/Beyond Contempt podcast. I'm Renee, and this is Beyond Contempt True Crime. You're listening to episode 54, Peggy Johnson. On July 21st, 1999, Megan Rios and her father John were walking their dogs in Raymond, Wisconsin. Raymond is a small village in Racine County, which sits in the southeast corner of the state and is not too far away from the Illinois-Wisconsin border. This was their typical dog walking routine, and in the mornings they strolled down 92nd Street, past a cornfield in rural Wisconsin. But this morning was different, and the dogs started barking at something in the field. There were drag marks in the soil that John spotted. Underneath the large power lines, the drag marks led to a slight embankment. As Megan and John curiously followed the disturbed soil, they found a woman's lifeless body approximately 25 feet from the roadside. John vomited right there on the edge of the field, and 16-year-old Megan took in the entire scene. Her response in that moment would eventually lead her to studying criminal justice in college. The deceased woman was in an unnatural position, with her arm tucked behind her, almost as if it had been broken. This poor woman was overly skinny and covered in bruises and burn marks. She was wearing black sweatpants and a denim western shirt that was embroidered with red and black flowers. Her clothes were wet, as it had rained the night before. The woman was not wearing any shoes or socks. Megan and John went back to their home to dial the sheriff's department. Since they walked the same route every morning, they were confident that the woman had not been there the morning before. Once investigators examined the scene, they concurred that this death had happened approximately 12 hours before Megan and John had discovered the body, and before the rainstorm began. On the autopsy table, the medical examiner found injuries all over the victim's body. She was extremely malnourished, with patches of road rash on her skin. 25% of her upper body appeared to have chemical burns. She had an infection in her left elbow, which wasn't treated. Several ribs were broken, along with her nose. The victim had 2 earrings in each ear, and one ear had a cauliflower deformity, much like you would see with a wrestler or grappler. The medical examiner thought the woman was between 18 and 35 years. She had shoulder-length reddish-brown hair that had been lightened by the sun. The woman might have had a cognitive disability, and there was evidence she had been sexually assaulted. Her teeth were not well cared for and were missing or decayed. The woman's 2 front incisors were a prominent feature of her mouth, and they stuck out beyond the gum line. She wasn't wearing glasses at the time of her death, but there was evidence that she otherwise did. Her eye color was hard to figure, and it was determined to be green, brown, or hazel. The medical examiner believed the woman had been abused for a long time, and this abuse had increased in severity prior to the victim's death. The cause of the death was listed as years of chronic abuse, which led to infection and sepsis pneumonia. The Racine County Sheriff's Office had little information to work with. No friends or family came forward to claim the woman. Investigators fixated on the victim's shirt because it was unique. The manufacturer said they first sold the shirt in 1984, but this information was a dead end. During the first year of the investigation, there were 1,400 leads that were checked out, but resulted in nothing. The woman's identity remained unknown, and the community and media referred to her as the Racine County Jane Doe. Raymond, Wisconsin was a small but caring community. Between the 3,500 residents, enough people donated money so this nameless woman could have a casket, gravestone, and proper funeral. On October 27, 1999, 50 people attended Jane Doe's funeral. They etched her tombstone with, "Daughter, Jane Doe. Found, July 21st, 1999. Laid to rest, October 27th, 1999. Gone, but not forgotten." 12 years passed, and nothing was happening with the case, but it was still in the minds of those who worked at the Racine County Sheriff's Office. They started a Facebook page dedicated to the victim. Every so often, law enforcement would make a post from a first-person point of view, desperately hoping that it resulted in leads. The posts often started off like this: "Someone knows me, and someone misses me." The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children pitched in and created a reconstitution of what the Racine County Jane Doe might have looked like. Since no one had claimed the victim, the sheriff's office hypothesized she came from a dysfunctional family and/or she had been a runaway, or perhaps she was from a different country. The police had few potential leads that were promising. In March 1989, 14-year-old Andrea Bowman disappeared from her parents' home in Hamilton, Michigan. So on October 16, 2013, the sheriff's office had the Racine County Jane Doe's remains exhumed and sent to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for DNA and isotope testing. They brought in an anthropologist from Tennessee to aid with the analysis, and police hoped they could determine what region Jane Doe lived in prior to her death. When they compared Jane Doe's DNA to the missing Michigan girl's mother, they confirmed that the Racine County Jane Doe was not Andrea Bowman. Fast forward to 2020, they arrested Andrea's father for a homicide in Virginia, and during that arrest, he confessed to killing his daughter. Some people believe that the Racine County Jane Doe's case was related to the Mary Kate Chamizo case. There were many parallels between the two situations. They found Mary murdered in Lake County, Illinois, and her body was in poor condition. She went unidentified for several years, and her body was malnourished, her teeth were in poor shape, and she had been beaten to death. Mary's case was never solved, and police were never able to formally link the two cases. The dead ends did not deter the Racine County Sheriff. He believed it was not if they identified the victim, it was just a matter of when, and he was confident that they would know her name one day. On July 21st, 2015, Jane Doe's body was buried again at Holy Family Cemetery in Caledonia, Wisconsin. On October 20th, 2016, the isotope testing of Jane Doe's hair and bones revealed that she might have spent time in Alaska, Montana, or southern Canada. On April 24th, 2018, in California, charges were being laid at Joseph James DeAngelo's feet. They finally caught the Golden State Killer with this newer technique called genetic genealogy. This gave the Racine County Sheriff's Office hope. Sheriff Christopher Smalling decided that they were going to vet genealogy companies to see if they could connect Jane Doe to her relatives. Consequentially, the Sheriff's Office never had to hire a genealogy company. On November 8th, 2019, Sheriff Smalling held a press conference. They knew the identity of the Racine County Jane Doe, and they had the suspect in custody. This day was a long time in the making. This case had been pursued by 3 different sheriffs. William McReynolds was in charge of the case from 1999 to 2003. It was handed over to Robert Carlson from 2003 to 2011, and it had been with Christopher Smalling from 2011 until now. The sheriff said that he had investigated many deaths and all kinds of unsettling situations, but the brutality inflicted on Jane Doe was something no one in law enforcement could forget. And this was one of the driving reasons they never gave up. The sheriff said that the victim had ties to a suburb of Chicago. The victim was 23-year-old Peggy Johnson of McHenry, Illinois, and the suspect in custody was 63-year-old Linda LaRoche of Cape Coral, Florida. Peggy Johnson's name was not known in Racine County since she wasn't from there, and the people who grew up with her didn't know her by that last name. To her classmates, they knew her as Peggy Schroeder. Peggy was born on March 4th, 1976, to parents Scott Johnson and Diane Schroeder. Her dad wasn't in the picture and had previously died. Peggy was raised by her mother, Diane Schroeder. Peggy was a sweet and shy girl, according to her classmates. She never talked very much, but always had a smile on her face. Peggy was a year behind in school, since she learned at a slower pace than her peers. But her classmates accepted her, and she had friends who stood up to her bullies. On November 26, 1994, 41-year-old Diane Schroeder passed away, and Peggy was still in high school, left without a mother or father. One of Peggy's classmates remembered at the end of that school year that Peggy kind of fell off the radar. She didn't recall seeing Peggy after the homecoming dance. Another classmate said that everyone failed Peggy. The schools, the state, her classmates, her mom. She just slipped through the cracks, and no one checked in with her. Peggy had a sister she never met, and her brother Jesse died in 1998. She became homeless for an amount of time and was invited to live with Linda LaRoche and her family. One of Peggy's childhood friends said that she seemed happy after she moved into the LaRoche house. This friend even visited her one time while Peggy lived there. Peggy was from a low-income family and was used to surviving on her mother's nursing home worker salary. Living with the LaRoche family gave her a security and stability that she never had before. This friend called Peggy over the years, but never received a call back. She even stopped in at the LaRoche house in the summer of 2000, but Linda told her that Peggy ran away and claimed that they hadn't heard from her since. They did not report Peggy missing, but her aunt placed a personal ad in a local newspaper in December 1999, asking Peggy to please get in touch with her. Linda LaRoche was a nurse and created a company called Guardian Correctional Care in 1997. She provided health care to 2 correctional facilities in Illinois. According to records, Boone County had a contract with Linda's company until January 2019 and DeKalb County until April 2019. The $18,000 per month contract with DeKalb County ended when they learned of Linda LaRoche's arrest. Linda LaRoche moved to Cape Coral, Florida in 2014 and purchased a home there. She painted a very positive picture of herself on social media. Through her posts, Linda tried to convey that she was family-oriented, open-minded, and generous, often donating money to various charities. Her Facebook wall was full of countless posts about her raising funds for animal shelters, cancer, LGBT equality, the Alzheimer's Foundation, ocean cleanup projects, and of course the Wounded Warrior Project. LaRoche was the type of person who enjoyed sharing inspirational quotes that were rooted in Christianity. One read, "What if one day you come to the realization that you never again have to explain yourself to anyone anymore?" Another one was, "Life is always a polarity. If there were no darkness, there would be no light." Yet another post read, "Do the right thing, even when no one is watching. It's called integrity." A quote in Linda's Facebook bio read, "Above all, be honest, be kind, treat people with love and forgiveness, don't tolerate disrespect. Heart emoji." On her Facebook, she described the mission of her company as taking care of the medical and psychological needs of criminals. She said she also performed expert witness work in forensic medicine. This presentation of her job within the company was a stretch. The DeKalb County Sheriff said that medical care was provided by LaRoche's company, but they did not do psychiatric evaluations. According to LaRoche's social media, she was the owner and CEO at Guardian Correctional Care, studied at College of Lake County, studied biology and pre-medicine at Harper College, University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. She attended Central High in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So LaRoche had ties to Wisconsin and made it back there occasionally. In 2016, she posted, "I was pretty healthy then, it was last spring, but I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm still up in Door County recuperating, but I'm doing well." LaRoche posted many photos of dogs, birds, horses, and even a Capuchin monkey named Holly that she had since the mid-1990s, and unfortunately, the monkey developed breast cancer a few years prior. She posted a photo from a time when she had an orange tan. One of her friends commented, "I always loved Linda LaRoche in Inmate Orange. Heart emoji ×3. LaRoche responded, "Yes, and with our job we saw a lot of orange modeled." A friend posted on LaRoche's wall, "Miss seeing you around the jail. Hope you are doing good." LaRoche commented back, "Oh, thanks. I do miss the jail, but I'm doing fine. I had a health crisis in the summer, but I'm doing well." In another post, she revealed she had sepsis. In May 2019, LaRoche posted an old photo of her in a nurse's uniform and captioned it, "Happy Nurses Week, heart emoji." By this time, Linda was on her second marriage, and she had been married several years according to her Facebook timeline. Her husband's Facebook showed them sailing boats, going out to dinner, eating seafood, and enjoying Florida life. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. Thank you to Podcorn for sponsoring this episode of Beyond Contempt True Crime. Podcorn is a marketplace where podcasters are connected to sponsorship opportunities, such as host-read ads, interview segments, topical discussions, and more. When you work with Podcorn, there is no middleman. It doesn't matter what size your podcast is. You can browse through all the potential sponsors and choose opportunities right on the platform. Podcasters set their own rates and collaborate with brands without any exclusivities. You never give up any rights to your podcast, and Podcorn will support you through the process to ensure that you're protected and compensated for your work you do with brands. Podcorn gives podcasters transparency, creative freedom, and full control of how creators monetize their show. Thanks again to Podcorn for sponsoring this episode. Click the link in my show notes to sign up for an account with Podcorn and start browsing all the potential sponsorship opportunities. Or you can sign up at podcorn.com/podcasters. Now, back to the show. In July 2011, when Casey Anthony was acquitted, Linda LaRoche posted on Facebook, "The most troubling part of the Casey Anthony case is the short amount of time the jury took to find her not guilty. There had to have been compelling reasons for that. Now I'm upset with myself for not realizing this sooner. Do I believe she is not guilty? I can't say that, but I do believe that the circumstantial evidence sucked. Like the tattoo that they said meant that she was happy for her freedom? Come on, talk about BS." And you may have to question the forensic scientist hired by the state who admitted that he had never tested for chloroform fumes before and had no procedure to do it, but made up the process. I have to say, he was a terrible witness and showed the state had really blown it. I, for one, am glad that the jury was able to hear both sides and not just the media. In retrospect, perhaps the Casey Anthony trial cut a little too close to the bone for Linda LaRoche. Her chronic Facebook posts came to an abrupt end after they arrested her for murder in November 2019. Once her name was put out in the media, people from all over the world found her Facebook profile and let the comments fly. Someone from North Carolina posted in all caps with a spelling error that LaRoche was the devil and called her a psychopath with a superficially charming and glib personality. Not every poster thought LaRoche was the devil incarnate. A teacher from India posted, "May God bless you more and more. Jesus is always happy. I will pray for you, and you're a child of God. Jesus loves you so much. Praise the Lord." One of Linda's friends posted he was keeping the LaRoche family in his prayers. Some Facebook users attacked this comment. So Linda's friend posted again that he did not know what happened 20 years ago and that he hoped justice was served. The Sun reported that Facebook was slammed for leaving the accounts of jail killers and crooks active online. But human nature reigns supreme, and some people enjoy digging into the digital footprint of high-profile criminals on social media. After Linda LaRoche's arrest, Racine, Wisconsin's The Journal-Times reached out to some of her friends in real life, but no one responded before the story went to print. Eventually, people who had known LaRoche came out of the woodwork and gave statements to the media. A pastor from McHenry, Illinois, had known Linda LaRoche as she had been a member of his church. There was disbelief, and it appalled people that a member of their congregation could commit such a terrible crime. Some people who had known Linda when she was younger in the 90s described her as Christ-like when she was in charge of a youth group. 40-year-old Dana Kroll took to Facebook to express her dismay. "Oh my God, you better be ashamed, lady. I used to attend a youth group you ran in the mid-90s and thought you were a wonderful woman. Turns out, you're a very sick individual. This makes my stomach turn." Dan Mativier knew Linda from the youth group days and said that if he were to choose 5 people that leaned pretty Christ-like, Linda would have topped his list. Dan was a bit of a misfit when he was a teenager and said Linda always accepted him, despite him being the type of kid who smoked cigarettes, wore all black, and felt misunderstood. This was why Dan found the news of Linda's arrest so upsetting, since he had a different picture of who she was. Dana Kroll and Dan Mativier remembered that Peggy Johnson had attended their youth group, but had nothing specific that they remembered about her. They both looked up to Linda because she was the type of person who took Peggy into her home. They just weren't aware that she was being abused. The youth group was finished in 1999, around the same time Peggy disappeared. Dana and Dan lost track of Linda LaRoche and had only seen her once or twice over the course of 20 years. Linda Forbes was currently friends with Linda LaRoche and thought she was a very caring and loving person. Although the news of her arrest did not surprise LaRoche's neighbor in Cape Coral, Florida. He witnessed LaRoche being drunk at all hours of the day. He knew something was going to happen, but he thought it would have been a domestic problem and not a murder arrest. LaRoche was very familiar with local Florida PD, as they had been called out to her house 7 times in 2019 alone. On October 6, 2019, Linda LaRoche was driving her newer C300 Mercedes when she crossed the center line and hit a Toyota Camry. Luckily, the driver of the Camry only suffered minor damage to the car. Linda LaRoche was loaded to the max with a blood alcohol of 0.33%, which was more than 4 times the legal limit. She was so intoxicated that she could not speak with the officer and only communicated with grunts and mumbling. When they placed her in the back of the cop car, she could barely sit up straight. Police found 2 bottles of banana schnapps clinking around in her purse. 2 weeks prior to her DUI arrest on September 23, 2019, police received a tip that Linda LaRoche confessed to various individuals that she killed someone. One of those individuals contacted the police. Right before the murder tip, Linda LaRoche's second husband filed for divorce on September 17, 2019. In October 2019, Linda LaRoche and her company, Guardian Correctional Care, were named in a civil lawsuit. Her company was contracted to provide medical care for the inmates in the Boone County Jail in Illinois. The suit alleged that an inmate named Justin Clubb committed suicide and did not receive adequate medical care in 2017. They filed the lawsuit on behalf of the estate of the deceased inmate. He was being held in the jail on accusations of theft and spent a week there experiencing all kinds of symptoms from drug withdrawal: insomnia, malnutrition, hallucinations, extreme stomach pain, vomiting, anxiety, and panic. He repeatedly asked for medical attention and never received it, so he took his own life. The lawsuit alleged that Linda LaRoche's company Guardian was merely a facade for LaRoche's personal operation, and she extensively commingled business and personal assets. For example, the company Guardian was the owner of her personal home. On November 5, 2019, there was a warrant issued for Linda LaRoche's arrest and showed that they set the bond at $1 million. They charged her with first-degree intentional homicide and concealment of a corpse. After Peggy's mother died and she was homeless, she sought help and met registered nurse Linda LaRoche at a medical clinic in McHenry, Illinois. Linda made Peggy an offer. She could live at Linda's house while she finished high school if she would care for Linda's children and take care of the housework. LaRoche said she had a troubled childhood, much like Peggy did. She lost her mother when she was young and didn't have anyone either. LaRoche related to Peggy and felt bad for her when she didn't have anywhere to go. The abuse that Peggy endured happened over a long time. She moved in with LaRoche when she was 18 and was found dead in a cornfield at age 23. Linda LaRoche's children witnessed some of the violence and remembered the abuse that their mother frequently dished out to their new housekeeper. The LaRoche children recalled asking Peggy about her black eye. She told them that their mother had punched her. Some remembered their mother stabbing at Peggy's head with a pitchfork. Sometimes Linda slapped Peggy across the face or slapped her head. The LaRoches had a cellar below the main floor of their home, and that was where Linda made Peggy sleep. It was little more than a crawl space. LaRoche stored medication she used for her business in the crawl space. Some publications reported LaRoche stole the medications from the jail she worked at, which was a possibility given her inability to differentiate her personal life from her business. LaRoche claimed Peggy stole medication from her and consumed it, which made her furious. She also alleged that Peggy was inviting men over to the house. She said she loved Peggy and gave her many chances, but her presence became a problem for the LaRoche household. Linda claimed that she no longer trusted Peggy, and she was too cognitively slow to care for the kids. She also stated that Peggy was mentally unstable and that her brother's suicide only made her worse. LaRoche says she just couldn't have Peggy at her house any longer. In July 1999, LaRoche said Peggy overdosed since she had access to medication, which was kept in the cellar where Peggy slept. LaRoche said that Peggy was in the kitchen with the medication that she dropped into the sink and then fainted. LaRoche claimed that these were not controlled substances and were medications for cardiac conditions. Peggy was out for about 15 minutes and was taken outside to get some air. When LaRoche's first husband, Robert, came home, Peggy was on the lawn and unresponsive. LaRoche claimed she didn't know what to do despite decades of being a registered nurse. She thought about calling an ambulance, but ultimately did not, and she rendered no medical help to Peggy. When Peggy's body was autopsied, her toxicology screen was negative, so LaRoche's claims about the overdose were not substantiated. She told her husband to take the kids out of the house. So her husband and the kids went out for ice cream and were gone for about 2.5 hours. During her interview with police, LaRoche couldn't stick to just one story. She said Peggy became conscious again, and she wasn't sure what to do with her. So she went to a gas station and used the payphone to contact Peggy's grandmother. She said they met up at a restaurant, and Peggy went to live at her grandmother's house. Police told LaRoche that they interviewed Peggy's grandmother, and she met no one from the LaRoche family. The grandmother certainly never saw Peggy on the day LaRoche claimed to have dropped her off. The other story that LaRoche told law enforcement was she drove Peggy to Wisconsin and left her on the side of the road, where something must have happened to her after LaRoche was long gone. When her kids and husband were out of the house, LaRoche obviously used that time to drive Peggy's body to Wisconsin and dumped her in a cornfield in Raymond. When her husband and kids returned, Peggy was gone and was never seen again. Right before the pandemic on January 9th, 2020, Linda LaRoche had her pretrial hearing. Her trial was supposed to start the following month, but she did not have an attorney yet. Between not having legal representation and COVID, her trial was delayed. 2 years went by, and Linda LaRoche's trial finally began in March 2022. Racine County had to put on a case with circumstantial evidence only. This crime was over 2 decades old, with no witnesses, fingerprints, DNA, or video. The prosecution tried to show Linda LaRoche's pattern of abuse that she inflicted on Peggy Johnson. The DA played tapes of LaRoche's interview with law enforcement for the jury, where she tried to deceive them with different stories about what happened. LaRoche told them 2 years after Peggy left the house, she called her back and asked to live at the LaRoches again. This was literally impossible, since they had discovered Peggy was dead in a cornfield 2 years prior. LaRoche said that Peggy's grandmother called her up and said Peggy moved to her father's place in Nevada. This was also not true, since Peggy's grandmother didn't know the LaRoche family. In 2018, LaRoche sent a text message claiming that Peggy was doing well in Nevada and had forgiven them for kicking her out. She said that Peggy friended her on Facebook. LaRoche even sent a fake photo of Peggy, claiming that she was happy with her life. One of the LaRoche kids testified that they knew it was not a photo of Peggy, since they were very familiar with what she looked like. Linda LaRoche said she told her family lies because she had one son who was relentless in bringing up Peggy, and he wanted his mother to just be truthful about what happened. LaRoche wanted everyone to find peace with the situation, and she needed her son to quit bringing up the topic. LaRoche's ex-husband threatened her at one point and said he would go to the police. Some of the LaRoche children confirm Peggy did not invite men to the house, and that was not anything that they had witnessed. They also confirmed that their mother inflicted physical and emotional abuse on Peggy, and Peggy never fought back or defended herself. This was a much different situation than LaRoche had described to investigators. The prosecution successfully emphasized a few important details that helped them win over the jury. Linda LaRoche's children testified that the abuse was ongoing and escalating from their mother against Peggy, and the actions of LaRoche were a substantial factor that led to Peggy Johnson's death. Linda LaRoche was the individual who caused all those injuries that led to Peggy being found dead in a cornfield in Raymond, Wisconsin. LaRoche lied for years to her family, friends, acquaintances, and police about what happened to Peggy, and would tell them that she dropped Peggy off at a hospital, train station, or with her grandmother. The defense argued that the state's case had glaring errors. 25% of Peggy's upper body had been covered in burns, her nose was broken, and her ear was damaged. Plus, the letter V was carved on her forehead. Some of these injuries were 3 to 8 days old, but no one in the LaRoche household had witnessed any of these injuries happen to Peggy leading up to her death. When did these injuries take place? The jury did not care about the specific answer to that question and agreed with the big picture that the prosecution laid out. They only deliberated for 4 hours and found Linda LaRoche guilty of the most serious charges against her instead of convicting her of a lesser crime. Linda LaRoche was guilty of first-degree intentional homicide in the death of Peggy Lynn Johnson Schroeder. They also found her guilty of hiding a corpse. Linda LaRoche's sentencing is scheduled for May 23, 2022. After the verdict was issued, Racine County Sheriff Christopher Smalling said, "The Sheriff's Office will never forget or stop working a cold case homicide. While the deaths of Peggy Johnson, Amber Creek, and Juanita Zdroik were once cold case homicides, these cases are shining examples of the hard work and dedication of the members of the Sheriff's Office in creating closure for the victims' families. I would like to thank all the professionals who assisted in bringing Peggy's killer to justice. For anyone involved in any other homicide, you need to worry. It's not a matter of if, but when you are held accountable." Megan Rios was a teenage girl who, along with her dad, discovered Peggy's body that unforgettable day back in 1999. Megan remembered that she never cried after finding the woman, but she followed the case from a distance over the decades. After the jury handed Linda LaRoche a guilty verdict, Megan cried nonstop. For her, it was heartbreaking, and she now had a 23-year-old stepdaughter, which was the same age as Peggy when she died. Megan said, "I'd be having a harder time if we knew her name, but we didn't have her killer. It's disturbing that this girl went looking for help when her life was falling apart and walked into the hands of that woman. She dropped her like garbage." Like many, Megan Rios blamed the LaRoche family for never coming forward. She was happy that there was some closure, but was still emotionally shaken by the whole thing. Her father, John, was a firm believer that they would solve the case in his lifetime. Unfortunately, that wasn't true, as John passed away before Linda LaRoche was arrested. After Peggy Johnson's identity was confirmed, they exhumed her body one more time, and on March 4, 2020, buried her next to her mother, Diane Marie Schroeder and her grandparents in Highland Garden of Memory Cemetery in Belvedere, Illinois. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Beyond Contempt. Please visit beyondcontemptpodcast.com for the links to the sources and music used in this episode. Research, writing, editing, audio production, and sound design were performed by me, Renee. If you like the show, please leave me a positive review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thank you so much, everyone.
Nice and people are open-minded. I gotta keep driving till I stop caring. All I ever needed was you and I driving through the sky, the middle of the night. Heading up by 84, I'll get to Portland before dawn. Yeah, and I'm planning on going up to Fairbanks. I'll just keep driving till I stop caring. Got a hotel in Cheyenne when I had a nervous breakdown, because I'm not really sure where the hell I'm going. But I'm gonna keep driving till I forget about